Action.
Welcome to another edition of Sounding Board. Thank you for watching on YouTube, for listening on iTunes or Google Play or whatever podcast app you're using. Nick, I've got a couple of questions to ask you.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. I haven't prepared you about any of these. This is just stuff that rattles around in my head. And
well, it's been a couple of weeks, so yeah.
It's been a couple of weeks. So, rigged elections?
Rigged elections.
Yeah, these have been playing
as
on my mind.
opposed to the normal ones.
I mean, one could argue that they're all...
It's a spectrum one assumes anyway.
A little bit rigged.
There are mechanisms in place to try and stop them from being rigged. But are you talking about...
I'm talking about properly rigged.
Venezuela style tower.
You know, the Peterborough by-election last year, potentially, with the postal votes. Yeah, proper rigged elections.
Okay, yeah.
General feel about them.
Feel about them?
Yeah.
Right, okay, you're trying to trap me now in something, aren't you? I would say that they are bad insofar as democracy is a flawed system, but people being honest and the processes that have been agreed being followed should only be should only be the right way of going about it. Is that the wrong answer?
Well, no, it's I'm deliberately.
I think if you are entrusting a form of democracy to the state and to the people, the people, then there has to be rules around it. Otherwise, what's the point of it? Democracy in that regard has to have order, which is obviously I'm now steering this towards democracy being right wing, even though it's not really, but. If you don't have rules, if there aren't, if I could just go up and cast as many votes as I feel are appropriate for my candidate in Blackadder style, then that makes a mockery of the whole system. So
this is why I'm struggling with it, because I hate the whole system anyway.
So you want to rig them?
Well, no. So I was thinking.
What's your point?
Well, so I was thinking the other day about like rigged elections.
About rigging an election.
And no, just about elections being rigged in general. And thinking, what do I think about these things? And it's one of these. I could easily just say, well, I don't like elections at all.
It would be a cop out in that respect.
But I'm trying to, build an argument, or at least try and
form an opinion
on it. Mm. So I was thinking, well, like you say, if a democratic system with rules that are applied and that are fair, I guess, is better than one that's not fair and overruled or dictatorial, etc. But then I started thinking, what if there was a rigged election and there was like a libertarian outcome?
To rig to get the libertarians in, you mean?
Yeah. What if the election was rigged and then half the government was torn down or the size of the state was shrunk? Would you be against? So it was
right.
The outcome was more freedom.
Do you mean the ends justifying the means?
Well, the whole thing around democracy, and it's still authoritarian, it's still overruling the little guy, that's all bad. So it's is rigging that any worse than so say if people are having their power over you, does it matter if they're doing it via a rigged election or a fair election? If they're overruling it, it's exactly the same, surely.
So I get what you're saying in the trappings of democracy in some way legitimise the statists, because they're saying this is open, this is fair, we give you a choice. It has the air. 1/65
millionth of a choice.
But you see what I'm getting at is it has the air of control and of choice and of checks and balances and all that kind of stuff. And you're saying obviously none of that matters. It's nonsense. So what would it matter if we rigged it? So I suppose I need to ask you something. This is just a simple answer. This needs to be a conversation. So is it libertarian to lie?
Would you be...
You're rigging an election.
Is that lying?
I'm
not saying... I'm not saying I'm rigging it. I don't even vote.
But you're endorsing the rigging of an election.
Not necessarily endorsing, possibly okay with. I'm struggling with it. I don't like any kind of authoritarianism. I don't like anybody having power over anybody else.
So, right. So I'm just unpicking this.
If something happened that was non-violent, that ended up with
That's what I was about to
less
come to.
violence.
So, non-violence, no use of force in any way. So what you're talking here is not about threatening people,
Of course not. Of course not.
but you'd be okay with what is commonly accepted in the law as bribery. Because as far as you're concerned, bribery is just trade, right?
What's the bribe for?
In exchange of goods or services.
Are we talking
or
about
promises.
how?
I'm talking about the rigged election here.
Right. I haven't even thought about how it's actually
Whoever's
rigged.
doing the rigging here,
I'm not.
there's foul play at hand.
Well, it could just be
with this election.
miscounting, Blackadder style. There doesn't have to be bribes involved.
So how do you get past the checks and balances then? Come on, this has got to have a conspiracy element to it. It's got to have probably bribery.
I'm not talking about. It doesn't have to happen in this country. It could be anywhere. Let's say it's
You don't think that those are all the tools of rigging elections?
Some third world, banana republic. It could be. I'm just in general.
I'm saying, don't you think that those are all the traits of said banana republic that rig the elections? Oh, yeah, you can have the seat on that board of trade if you swing this, or that car will appear outside your house or whatever. So you'd be okay with all of the methods to get there, or you put your fingers in your ears with those methods, as long as it got your guy in charge.
Well, no, because it depends. It depends on the methods. If there's violence involved, then
None of that's violent. It's back scratching, promises.
So they've got some kind of libertarian party that have got insiders everywhere, and they've.
This is your scenario.
Well,
How on
that's what I'm
earth
saying.
do libertarians get into power by rigging elections?
Well, proper libertarians don't, do they? Because they don't want power. But let's just say a classical liberal, party or something managed to get insiders everywhere.
I think it's so absurd an idea. I love that you come up with the thought experiment.
I like to come up with these scenarios.
And that's fine, but you could argue this is the same as a lot of scenarios that the left, that the collectivist left, come up with, saying that if we had no state, then no one would help each other, and all this kind of stuff. This to me is just as absurd. The libertarians sneaking their way into power in order to dismantle the system is fairy tale.
But let's say an election was rigged in somewhere like Tower Hamlets to get some, or like enough.
Why are they running in the democratic process in the first place is normally what you say.
It depends. Well, let's say classical liberals then. Let's just say it doesn't the specifics. I don't want to get bogged down in the specifics. Let's just say there's a rigged election and the outcome is less violence because there's less coercion and less authoritarianism and the state shrinks. So just don't worry about all that.
Okay, well, so in the same way that even if you and I don't ever vote again, we could end up with the country could go more free market over time if people if politicians said this is more likely. Yeah, it's not very likely, but it's more likely than what you were saying there in terms of rigging. Let's just say it naturally happened over time anyway, even though we haven't voted for it. And even right now, even some of the stuff that is being talked about trade, there's an awful lot of spending that's about to happen. But it does seem that we're in this mixed bag with this government, where actually there are going to be some genuine free market policies come out that everyone will benefit from. That you and I will go, oh well, yeah, obviously I support that policy. But that doesn't mean that we're endorsing it. Doesn't mean we're playing a part in it. If a government came to power that reduced every tax to 10%, then you and I would probably be clinking our glasses. But that doesn't mean that we endorse the way that it got there, the methods it got there.
Let me put it.
You're not going to go on hunger strike because of it.
Let me put this a different way then. 2 election outcomes. One election outcome is a rigged election, but the result of that are some liberal/libertarian policies are implemented, the state shrinks, there's less coercion, less violence. A fair election with socialists that get in. What's the better of the 2 outcomes?
Okay, you're asking about outcomes with those 2.
Yes.
Undeniably, a smaller government outcome is better than a statist socialist outcome. But it is you're asking for moral judgment, aren't you, on whether the ends justify the means, and you're asking for
and they're not your means. So this is not your. I fully aware this is not your desired outcome of any election, but this is just faced with two scenarios. Which is the better outcome? Which is the better,
So I suppose another question to ask here is: are you also trying to dismantle the democratic process altogether? This isn't just about continuing democracy with less statist people in power. If you're trying to end this altogether, then there's an element of smashing the system.
Don't get too bogged down. Just
no, but I'm saying that's important. I'm saying if we think the only way of getting rid of the democratic process is to rig the elections, is to do it, then that is the method. You can't just stop doing it one day. Do you need to discredit the system? Do you need, in which case that's your method to do it?
I'm not talking about the long game here. I just want to think about these two outcomes or these two scenarios.
How would you know if it's rigged?
It doesn't matter. It was.
So all across the news, this government is illegitimate.
No, let's say that you know someone who's told you or whatever. It doesn't matter.
No, of course it matters. Of course it matters. If it's a secret, how am I going to know whether it's true or not? If someone just says to me, "Oh, by the way," how do any of us know this stuff?
It's a thought experiment with two scenarios, and you're avoiding the question.
I don't think I'm avoiding the question at all. I've already told you that one is undeniably a better outcome.
Than
the other one.
Okay.
But I'm trying to grapple the morality around it. I don't think that's a bad thing. It is thoroughly moral things is what we do. That's why I point back to the types of trades and exchanges that you might want to do that are unregulated.
I started to think about other things like, well, if potentially I'm fine with a rigged election if it means less violence overall.
Yeah. What are you endorsing by doing that? This is the thing.
I'm not endorsing any of this. This is just, it's like head or gut stuff. But under the circumstances, I'd rather be punched in the gut.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm not endorsing anything.
Moral relativism here. We're talking.
Yeah. So what about if there was a country, and I'm thinking of like kind of Singapore type places, but slightly worse, where there's, for example, one party system, there are no elections, but they're more libertarian.
You're talking about the difference between economic and social freedom here, or specifically when you talk about things like Singapore?
Could be just a very small state that is economically and socially pretty free.
Okay. What's your question again? You're thinking about what happens.
So is that better than a country such as ours, which is fully democratic?
Depends on your definition. Depends on your definition of better. Better for whom? Better for. If the only way of answering that question is better for you, better for the individual, then it obviously
the
depends
majority
on those.
of people, let's say.
For the many, not the few. This is the problem with having a discussion like this. Obviously, is that you end up using terms majority. That's democratic stuff. That's democratic talk.
Well, no, I'm talking about establishing whether something is better for the majority is nothing to do with democracy.
Okay.
I'm not saying that the people are voting on it. That's the whole point. They're not voting on it.
But are you saying if it's better? But if you're saying if it's better for the majority, but worse for the minority, then that's okay as long as you're in the majority.
Again, this is relativism. It's like so the opposite of that is better for the minority and worse for the majority. You're saying that's better.
No.
So what are you saying? Because that's what I'm trying to get here.
I'm saying it's way more complicated than that. It's still all about whether you've got individual freedom or not, isn't it? And I get that.
Well, you don't, because there's a state, even though it's a small one. In both places, you don't have individual freedom, and there's no like now there is no such thing as a libertarian anarchist state anywhere.
Okay,
so it's all about relativism.
Are you trying to get me to agree that no matter, as long as it's non-violent, no matter what the reasons for having a state that is halfway less than we have now, that that's just morally good. Is that what you're trying to get me to admit to?
I'm just trying to get an answer. I'm struggling with this, and I'm not sure.
Okay. This isn't a stinger. You're not going.
No.
Well, that's because. But you can see why. You can see why I'm being a bit defensive about it. And I'm being genuine. The reason I'm asking questions back and the reason I'm discussing it is because I don't know as much as you don't know. So I'm trying to feel my way around it until I find. I'm not, this isn't me trying to avoid it. This is me trying to find a way to an answer. So take that for how it's intended. Obviously, there's an inbuilt unease.
I know
that there is a certain squirming that you get because we have been brought up to
democracy.
Yeah,
but it's still authoritarianism.
Yeah, and it is still the many over the few every single time.
Is it? Okay, this is another thing. So, particularly our democratic system is not chosen by the many. You know, if you think of how many people voted for the Conservative Party,
Are you going to do an AC Grayling style stat now?
Well, this is the only thing he's right about.
Are you counting the number of people?
I'm not counting children and
birds. Yeah.
But the number, if you think of the number of people who actually vote and get their way, or even vote for the party. And again, there are so many different layers. There are so many things that are done with kind of statutory instruments, and so many things that the civil service do, where they have so many quangos,
quango states,
all this kind of stuff. So our system isn't really democratic anyway. It's still authoritarian. It's still a minority are choosing for the majority. So whether it's the minority that we have now, or a smaller minority that have rigged this mythical election that I've just created, it's still minority rule.
Right.
But the rigged one has, is
at least
closer to gulch than.
But I suppose the point is, I keep coming back to terms like the ends justifying the means, and a phrase like at least their heart's in the right place. I think it just has echoes of all the stuff that the horrible communists left say about their side. At least he tried, and 10 million people happen to die. That's what I think makes me uneasy.
I mean, obviously the clear difference is though that when they rig elections and change the rules, they do it for more authoritarianism, for more power, and this is the complete opposite.
And again, please forgive me for saying this is fairy tale stuff, because it has never happened in the history of the world, to my knowledge.
That we know of.
But this is the point, isn't it? It's things go in a statist direction. The closest you can get to a resetting of the state is the Declaration of Independence, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't think of
the resetting to a classical liberal state, and
still didn't work,
and it's been downhill from there. But there are declarationists, aren't there?
Oh yeah.
That's the thing, because it's I'd argue it's a pretty good starting point, and this is where the only kinds of systems that we can come up with are systems that have a built-in reset or a built-in expiry, a built-in timer on a law, sunset clauses, or whatever else.
You can still change all those.
But you can exactly.
We're get enough votes. We're going to change.
As soon as there's a system, you can change it exactly. And this is why I come back to the idea of using democracy, even if it's rigging democracy, in order to get the right people in order to dismantle the system. If you don't dismantle the democracy, if you don't dismantle the system entirely, then what's to stop someone else coming in using exactly the same techniques and doing the same thing? So, if everyone's rigging elections now.
But if you look at it from the standpoint that elections are bad because democracy is bad, because it's
then you think morally that allows you to lie and cheat your way through that election in order to get something that reduces the amount of lying and cheating?
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that if all elections are bad, then
it doesn't matter how bad one of them is.
Then if one of them has a slightly better outcome, that's overall better.
My problem with that form of relativism is you can use it for an election right now. You could say that right now, having Boris Johnson in charge and the Conservatives in power is better for you and I. And I'm obviously ignoring a load of policies there, not least of which IR35 changes, which are going to affect you massively, and the general green blob stuff. But I think
It's
we
still
can
not
agree
communism.
it's not communism, and we can still agree that it would be worse if Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party and John McDonnell were in power. So you'd be happy with rigging the election to get Boris in?
Again, you keep talking about me rigging this election.
Well, you've come up with a thought experiment that you only want me to answer.
No, if you, the
I'm
question
talking
is,
it through.
if the question is if an election was rigged, then I'll answer that. I wouldn't take part in an election.
But you'd be happy with the
rigging or
outcome.
not.
If
Would
it turned out that this last election was rigged.
Would I be happy?
Yeah.
Happier than a fair election that Corbyn got in? Yeah.
Okay.
Of course I'd be happier.
Well, this is why I think it's worth saying it out loud. This is why I'm asking you.
Of course.
I think you'd be relieved.
Well, thank goodness someone's stepped up and rigged the election for us.
But we're talking proper. But isn't it weird? You'd be feeling really. What's the feeling two things at once?
Cognitive dissonance.
No. Can't think of the words, but just feeling two opposing emotions at the same time.
Right.
You'd be divided, wouldn't you? You'd.
A little.
But so this is why I keep asking you. I keep asking the question. You say, no. This is all about you. You're actually very clear about this. You're actually very clear. You'd be very happy. You've got no qualms.
I mean, it's not no qualms, but it's...
You're about 80-20 by the sounds
yeah,
of
it is. It probably is 80-20. I don't like elections. I don't like people having power over everybody. So that if you think all elections are bad, the one with the best outcome is better than one with the worst outcome. So
I'm trying to think long term. In that, if that, this could have happened. This could have happened. A lot of people on the left, Carol Codswallops will think it happened anyway. They'll be trying to join the dots to Russia, as Trump would say. So it's not completely outside the realms of possibility. But my concern is then that if that's considered to be a success, then it happens more and more and more. And the point is that we don't have libertarians, even libertarians in name only, in power doing it. So if that means that there's a slow march towards this new curious blend of, what should we call it, right wing centrism? What's the Boris?
I think he's almost centre left.
Yeah.
It's centrism. It's regulation. It's nationalisation, and with a bit of free market in there.
We'll like free markets as far as we can get public services out of them.
Mm.
Yeah. So it's, as you say, it's good old fashioned centrism. It's just that in many ways it seems like the borrowing of left and right goes a bit further both ways each time. Not necessarily the amount of freedom and statism, but the left and the rightness of it.
Yeah, because they're not free markets, they're heavily regulated markets.
Exactly. As a way of just trying to squeeze the right. Well, again, they see themselves as moral, don't they? This is an important part, I think, of the right wing's side of these centrists, is that the reason they come up with these regulations and these rules and these quangos is because they do have a moral sense about how a company should be. You can own it, but we're going to tell you how to run it.
But the left and the right think they've got the moral high ground. Everybody thinks they're more moral than everybody else.
Yes.
And my issue with people is that I don't mind if you think you're more, you have better morals than me or anybody else, but just don't impose them on anybody.
Yes.
But
the scenario, but I want to come back to the scenario.
Back to the scenario.
The scenario of it happening in the real world means that then it would be more likely to continue happening. And if it happens with Boris type characters and parties, then we're only in for more statism in the long term. So we're arguably in exactly the same situation we're in now, regardless of elections being rigged, which is they'll use the rig to just give themselves more power overall.
But again, if it's that or communism, I would still think that's a better outcome than communism.
Yeah.
But it is.
But it's
not
like
as easy.
is it this or a gun to your head? I mean, it's something. Only idiots support communism. I mean, that's just a fact. There, I've said it.
and
And
all the other forms of statism.
and that's that's the thing that people
There, I
don't
said it.
get. Yeah, but that's obviously the point that people don't get. People think that you need a state to have some form of order or control.
So this brings me on something else that you mentioned a while ago, or I think I mentioned, and you just dismissed it, or you didn't. You didn't agree at all, and he said, "Yeah, we'll come back to that at another point." This was weeks ago, possibly months ago. In that, I said I made some sweeping statement, as I do, like
today,
as we do, like the right wing isn't a threat, or the far right isn't. The far right isn't a threat.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to talk about that.
And I don't think it is. I still don't really think it is.
You don't see the right wing as a threat.
Okay, again, to qualify, in Britain.
You sure?
Okay, because
sure.
In America, Trump is pretty on the right. I think it's argue. I think you could argue in America that both the left and the right are a threat, because the left wing they occupy all the universities, all the media, and there's still socialism and communism is very, very popular with young people, and it appears
over here, but it
appears to be getting more popular.
Yeah,
we'll get onto that.
Yeah,
but also the right wing, Trump's tariffs and his borders and all the protectionism is popular as well.
That's actually popular.
So I think
we don't have that over here.
No. So I think the left and the right are a threat in America. I think over here, the right wing aren't real. I mean, they're
centrism is. It's more centrism, and the left.
And the left, yeah.
I think that's the difference. That's the difference. The right wing, on its own, and again, I suppose it's a matter of degrees, isn't it? You can't just say that Trump isn't centrist, because there's obviously centrism there in a number of ways, but. You can argue that the American state
is there much centrism with Trump?
Well, okay, I'm going to think. I'm trying to describe now the American political governmental system. Obviously, it's federal, so you've got so many more layers.
Yeah. And lots of stuff. Like you say, lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff is devolved
at state level.
Yeah, which is a good thing, and it goes down to a county level and all this kind of stuff. But it is. How Yaron Brook describes your local dictator, isn't it? Of all these different levels that are there. But how much of it is truly left wing? Just because there's a lot of state, how much of it is the ownership of the means of production? They don't have an NHS, for example. They do have public education systems. It is the roads. It is all that kind of stuff.
Education and infrastructure are the two main things, and that's.
Yeah.
All I can really think of, to be honest.
So in that respect, America is the system is more right wing.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, than ours, and that again, that balance that we have, if balance is the right word, that mix. We have a much more of a mixed economy over here, because we do have more departments that. Deal only with monopoly departments like the NHS, as well as a lot of the regulatory stuff. That America's full of regulation, isn't it? But it's not got as much wealth redistribution as we do. And I don't think particularly Trump is in favour of wealth redistribution from the state, stuff like that.
So are you agreeing with me now then that the right isn't really much of a threat?
I would agree with you that the centrists are more of a threat.
Because I think we were talking about.
I think you were talking about Boris.
Well, I think I was putting the boot into the leftists.
Yeah.
And you were saying let's not give the right an easy ride, and I said something like, but they're not really a threat.
Yeah.
Which is why I focus on.
I definitely stuck a big pin in that.
Communism and socialism, because they are a massive threat. But I don't see the right. I don't see there being. They're never going to be rallies for more regulation. There aren't really people.
No, they just do it anyway.
I don't think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to get any less regulation anytime soon. But I don't think. I mean, so I would have said that the right were a danger and a threat under Theresa May because she was massively nanny state. All
But
that
isn't
kind of
that what the
surveillance.
right? But the nanny state is the right.
Correct, but she's not in power anymore, and Boris is, and I think a lot of that stuff has gone away and been replaced with
So
the
you
left-wing
don't
stuff.
mean the right aren't a threat. The right are a threat. Theresa May was the right. Theresa May was the threat with the nanny states.
I don't think they're really. So she was a threat at the time. She's not in power now, and none of her.
Well, saying someone's not a threat because they're not in power. Jeremy Corbyn's not a threat anymore because he's not in power.
Yeah, but people love. A lot of people love Jeremy Corbyn's policies. Nobody liked the nanny state stuff.
Oh, I think a lot of people did. There was a lot of puritanism, especially in the Conservative Party.
Within Conservative MPs, I don't think that's reflected.
And again, I think a lot of Labour people were. They might have said one thing, but they were all for that regulation. Again, in their the second best option to actually owning everything. There's still come on. We've still got sugar taxes. We've still got there's so much nanny state stuff. But my point is, if you're saying that it was more a Theresa May style right that isn't a threat. You're talking about Boris Johnson being in power, so to me it's whether you think centrism is a threat.
Well, centrism is clearly a threat. Clearly. Possibly the biggest threat.
Okay,
at the moment.
But we did have then a right-wing prime minister in your eyes of Theresa May, and that was really not that long ago.
Yes, centre right, I would say. Because she was still she loved the NHS, she loved education, she loved roads.
Do we need our own sounding board continuum behind us on here? And then just every now and then we'll just get a photograph of someone and just stick them on it and then discuss where they should be. This is the problem with a lot of these conversations. It's about how far one way or the other.
You don't like Top Gear where they had the cool wall.
Yeah.
We could have like quadrants here, and we could have like you, me, and Murray Rothbard down the centre, right at the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you've got everyone else.
Rory Stewart up here.
Yeah. Jeremy Corbyn.
Yeah.
I think we should perhaps do that.
It might be an easier visual thing because otherwise we keep talking about someone being worse or better or left or righter than someone else. But you said the right are not a threat in this country.
Not much of a threat. Certainly compared with the left wing. You don't get right wingers.
Well, the left aren't much of a threat. They can't get into power.
Again,
the right can, and the centrists do.
Yeah, but the left wingers are influencing the centrists, and the left wing policies are getting in.
So does that mean that the left are more of a threat, or not?
I would say so.
So you're saying if the left just weren't around, then the centrists would be fine. Think about this. Are the centrists just the useful idiots?
They're certainly idiots.
I mean, I'm thinking green now, okay? I'm thinking the climate policies, okay? The absolute nonsense policies that are coming out of this current government on abolishing our central heating systems and our cars within like a decade or so.
Okay, so this is another interesting question that I wasn't going to get onto environmentalism today.
But I'm saying that the right can do that, the centrists can do that right now with regulation. And they can destroy the economy.
This is another question for you. I know we're jumping around a bit.
That's fine.
So the people talk about the kind of eco warriors as being trying to get communism by the back door all the time, which I would agree with. I think a lot of them are fine with that.
Yeah.
Certainly the most active ones. But overall, do you see the green movement as being left or right or centrist, or where do you see it? Because there is
after the last year, I see it now being everywhere. I don't
because
see
there's
it being.
So much.
They've just adopted it, and to be fair, Cameron started that process, didn't he? Vote blue, go green. That, but I'm saying this has its roots. That's a defining moment in the move towards the right of the Green movement and the beginning of the end. But now it's mainstream. It is centrist. It is now. Michael Gove will stand up next to Greta. I mean, what? They've done it again. The left have done it again.
But
They've convinced them.
Okay. So this is my point, and I'm going to point at you.
How dare you?
It's
Politician style. Do it with the end of your thumb.
It's not just it's not just left wing. So I see a lot of the eco warrior stuff as,
Can we call them eco loons?
Eco loons. As not just like the EU, where people say, "Oh, it's a huge left-wing project." Not really. It's actually far more right than it is left.
Oh, I
The
see.
eco-loon
But are you
stuff-
talking about the policies, or are you?
Yeah.
Right.
It's so heavy
subsidies
on
and-
regulations.
Yeah,
and
the government. Right. Okay. So
It's right. There's a lot of right wing in it.
But again, I suppose the point is we've had. I don't like saying the term "we've had a right-wing government" because it's not been that right-wing. It's been centre-right, and it's, as you say. But we have not had a left-wing in the traditional sense government for many a decade now. Actually,
And we've never had them like some Europeans have had them.
No.
We've been pretty lucky.
so, and even if you only say that this has become seriously popular since 2010, we've had again. Tories, Lib Dem coalition, then just Tories in. Since then, we're approaching the 10-year mark now on that. So there's not been the opportunity for left-wing versions of these things. It's not like the government started their own wind turbine building facility, like the equivalent of the NHS for wind farms. That would have been, I think you'd agree, the left-wing version of dealing with green policy. It would be the government is going to be in the business of producing solar panels. The government is going to be
we're going to take over all the energy companies and we'll replace them with offshore wind farms or whatever.
taking over the energy companies, absolutely, in order to change them and whatever. Yes, the energy industry, which I don't think is quite the same thing as just all things green, but energy is a biggie. Hasn't been nationalised. So,
Yet.
well, and again, that was basically a policy that got thrown out in the last election. So all that there's been has been right-wing stuff, and it's subsidies to try and encourage it to work, and tax breaks and everything else, which did help create those industries. But it's just the fact that they're false industries, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, industry should exist. It will exist. If you pay someone to make solar panels, they'll make solar panels. They won't make solar panels if nobody pays them to do it. But having more than one customer, having the government as a customer, as well as the actual person that you give the the solar panel to, of course you're going to then jump into it.
But just think about the policies that people themselves are advocating when they're on
The people.
Eco warriors.
Right.
And a lot of them are, even though these people probably identify as left wing.
Right. Are you talking
A lot of them are
Extinction
right-wing.
Rebellion type? How lunatic are we getting? We need another continuum here. But this is the problem, isn't it? It's all a matter of degrees. Someone who wants to dig up the lawn at Trinity College isn't exactly burnishing their environmental credentials.
That was just ridiculous.
So, or a person spraying fake blood on the Treasury. What?
Yeah, with an old fire engine, there are diesels pumping out the back. And
So, what policies are? I don't think those are the types of policies.
well, so
They're
things are
their
going to
policies.
things are heavily regulated. They want to ban things, want to ban cars. This is all right wing stuff.
Okay.
Banning and heavily regulating is a big part of it.
Yeah, but regulating something to the point that it doesn't exist. That's an interesting one, I suppose, isn't it?
It's like
It's a bit like a
slow
ban
ban,
again.
yeah.
But yeah, but again, you can't ignore that in communist states, things are banned because the government controls everything, which is the kind of the point I'm getting to. If the government controls anything, then the government makes the law, and the government says you're not allowed to do that. And part of that is you're not allowed to set up a company and do something. Yeah. So unless you're saying that that's the right wing part of communism. I think you can't say that they both don't have a measure of control. So I think that those people, if you were to actually have them honest with you, then again their aim is a communist one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think lots of people. I think that the actual loons will go along. You know, the Extinction Rebellion types will go along with far right policies like extreme regulation and that kind of thing.
But really, what they want is a planned economy. But they want a planned economy, and that is not well. Okay, question for you: is a planned economy right wing or left wing?
How planned and how is it planned?
The 5-year plan.
Yeah, but is it planned from the point of view?
We're going to sit down and work out how many ballpoint pens we make. That planned economy.
And who owns the companies?
Doesn't matter.
Interesting.
There you go.
I mean, you could plan an economy in a right wing way.
Yes. This is heavily regulated to the point where we're telling you how many of something to make.
You know,
you still own the company.
So it could be.
You will succeed
if you want
or
to
fail.
make pens, if you want to make pens, you need to come to us, get your pen license.
Pen license.
We will tell you exactly how many pens to build,
and
what
when,
to build them out of,
what colour to make them.
Yeah. So you could have a right wing planned economy, and a left wing planned economy. They tend to be left wingers. They tend to be left wing, don't they?
Yeah.
But fascism, you know, like Nazi Germany with their cartels.
Was that a planned economy?
It was pretty planned.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, well, to say pretty planned, it wasn't like a 5-year plan, but it was just we will organise who does what. We're not going to plan for years ahead, but only you can do this, only you can do that, only you can do this.
So this is where, again, what we're coming to here is that there are a number of things that are just statist. They will have a
Or
tinge,
can be both. Can be both.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But they will have a tinge one way or the other. There will be a style one way or the other. But you can take something that's just statist and apply it to both.
But just going back to my point earlier, you've got the loons who will advocate for right wing policies because they think that's all they can get. They really want the far left.
And they're doing it because they think it's genuinely a stepping stone.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
So if I can convince you of that, then I'll convince you that you should go and live in a hut because that's better for for everything.
But I think there are some people who are slightly more middle of the road who don't want communism, but they think, well, if we had a highly regulated economy, that would solve a lot of these. That would solve climate change.
This is where I think they are more dangerous because I think that the loons, the eco loons in your scenario here, are the Jeremy Corbyns on the political left. Okay, so they're not going to get in. They're not dangerous because they're not going to get in. Extinction Rebellion aren't dangerous because they're not. No one takes them seriously. No one really takes it. It's a tiny minority that take them seriously. In fact, they lose more than they gain when they do stupid things like they did, like closing roads in Cambridge.
I would agree with Extinction Rebellion. I think Corbyn is still, or Corbynism is likely to get in at some stage. It was so close in 2017. So close.
You think it's likely to get in? Because
I think if you think of the universities and education and how people are just getting further and further to the left, as time goes on, and it's not getting any better. I know there was talk about Generation Z being better than the millennials,
Zoomer,
but they're not really. I can't see it.
No, not at all.
So I think the left is a threat and the right isn't. Although it isn't as much of a threat.
But do you get the point I'm making in terms of dangerous? It's the centrists that end up in power. And they're the ones that actually do things.
But the Overton window is moving to the left, and they're doing more and more left. But they're moving to the left faster than they're moving to the right. Think of how much of the budget the NHS is going to be in the next few years. It's going to be something like 38% in a few years or something ridiculous.
That's just crazy. That's just utterly crazy, isn't it?
We're going to spend so much on on the left-wing parts of the economy.
That's an interesting question, isn't it? When you notice I'm starting this with when. When the NHS is 50% of the economy, of the UK economy.
20 years, I reckon. 20, 25 years. That could be the case.
Does the NHS reach a point where it just completely explodes as a concept? Is it 50%? Is it 40%? Is it 60%? At what point can you no longer convince people, of course a majority of all of your wages and all of everything we do should be on healthcare? Because this is healthcare. When does that not become an argument that people will stomach anymore? Is there a point
I hope
where it's the best one we've got, isn't it? It's the best hope we've got is that it gets so ridiculously big.
It's just so depressing. It's not much of a hope, is it? 'Cause it has to get to this point where you and I, half of our income is going towards healthcare.
But this is the problem with roads.
We're both perfectly fit.
This is the problem with roads, isn't it? You can just throw some money and people can fill in some potholes. People can build another road. People can. You'll never whinge. You might whinge about getting stuck on the A14, but it's not the same as knowing that there could be a road that goes from here to here. If only there was a total free market on land and roads. The roads can't get to a tipping point, can they? Where we're going to go, right, that's it. We're tearing up the land ownership and road building. It's not going to happen. But you arguably could get there with education and with health. But probably more likely health, because health continually costs more money. Continually. I mean, like, stratospherically, doesn't it? Because we keep living longer.
Yeah, and also if you think about health and the way that the drug companies are so heavily regulated and tied up.
Yeah, and keep producing things that make us healthier and live longer.
Yeah, but just if you just think about how if there's only one buyer in the UK, or basically one buyer of medicine,
the NHS.
The NHS, is that gonna be good for the price of drugs?
No, it's not right now. That's
which is
part of the problem.
Exactly, that's why it's got this exponential
oh, absolutely.
rise in prices.
Oh, absolutely, and you can spread that to medical equipment.
Of course, yeah,
and nurses and doctors and hospitals and every other part of that sector. But it does, as I say, can you envisage it being so bloated, so unwieldy, so... I'm not saying it hasn't gone through another 5 Andrew Lansley style reorganisations that somehow are supposed to make it better, because right wingers, who are more likely to be in than left wingers, are the ones that are going to do. They're going to keep promising more money, like Boris, because that's how you win elections, and they're going to keep saying, well, if we weren't to do anything with it, then it wouldn't look like we got a reason for being here. So we'll keep monkeying around with it.
You talk about the right wingers, but they're not. They're not. Nothing that they do with the NHS is right wing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're not acting as right wingers.
Yeah, because they own it.
Yeah,
because the state owns it.
Yeah, they're acting as. They could be acting. You could argue they're acting as conservatives, because conservatives are quite left wing.
But don't you think, in that regard, that it's amusing? Or, I don't know whether that's the right word, that we have a Department of Health and an NHS and an NHS regulator. We have the National Institute of Health and Clinical Care Excellence, whatever hell it's called today, annoyingly called NICE. They created a regulator. Who created the regulator? Come on, that must be the right wingers. They must have created the health regulator. Even if it was Tony Blair, it was him and his right-wing tendencies creating a health regulator. That's not right-wing. You don't need... The left
health regulator is right.
Sorry, it's not left-wing. The left don't need a regulator. They just go in and get their hands dirty and just pull the levers. So there's this pseudo kind of...
If it's okay, this is another one. If it's
regulating a left-wing industry.
If it's regulating
State
a means
industry.
of production that's owned by the state, is it a left wing or a right wing regulator?
We are quickly going to get to the point where does it really matter at all?
Well, it doesn't matter with that at all.
No,
But
but
the state is in control of health.
We've made it our thing to try and define everything as being either left or right or centrist.
Or a mixture, I guess, yeah.
But I think it might be an obsession. I think now I'm thinking that it's an intellectual exercise, but it's not that important. It's all statism. It's all...
It is, but I think it's important that people know what is left and what is right.
Certainly with the language that's used in the media to define these things. Here's an observation. We've gone on to right and left in a big way now in this conversation.
That tends to be our thing
I know.
at the moment.
So, I'm sure you've read countless articles, and
You've got a loud voice. Do you want to go and get a scotch while you say that?
you think that they're going to be able to hear me? I think they probably will. What scotch do you want? Shall we go for an easy drinker to start with?
Yeah, let's have some breakfast
Right.
whiskey. Thank you.
That's the Ardmore that brother number 3 got me for Christmas.
So where are you going with this?
What was I going to say? This is the problem with you interrupting my flow.
We were talking about the left and the right and it being our thing, and I can just carry on if you want me to.
Keep talking, and then I'll interrupt you as soon as I remember.
So the reason that I like to do this, and I think it probably is more me kind of banging on about the difference between right and left than you. And I know it's kind of our thing, but you're right. It probably is me taking it to the extremes. The reason your health, sir. The reason that I'm doing it is because I don't want people to get confused, as I was, and I think the majority of people are, that the right are the same as the classical liberals and the libertarians.
Yes.
And that they don't see that people becoming more freedom obsessed, like us,
Is not becoming right wing.
is not becoming right wing, and is not a danger. There's not a danger that you go down the right or you go down the the classical liberal route and then suddenly you're fascist. This is what I'm.
Yes.
The whole reason I'm doing that.
Thank you for filling that time, because I
Have you
have now
remembered?
remembered what I was going to say before you interrupted me with this delicious idea. In news articles, in the media in general, in the legacy media, I quite like that as a term.
I heard that the other day and I wrote that down. I wanted to.
Did you? I literally saw it in a tweet this morning, the term
Right.
legacy media, and I thought to myself, that is perfect, absolutely perfect. Really distinguishes it well, I think, so that you can mean the Guardian, the BBC, and everything else all in one go.
I can't remember where I heard it. I think it was on a podcast. But I've been calling them the corporate press
Oh,
recently as well.
that's quite good.
The corporate press.
But does that cover the BBC in that regard? Anyway, we're going off topic. We're going off topic. You will have read countless articles or heard people, presenters, whatever, talk about far right people, far right commentators, far right. James Delingpole is always written as a far right commentator or whatever, or journalist or whatever. And politicians are described. Viktor Orban is described as a far right politician. Obviously, occasionally some people are described as alt-right, but the term far right and far right policies as well. This government and its far right policies. Boris Johnson is far right. Yeah, I'm sure if we googled Guardian, Boris Johnson, far right, we get a number of hits.
You certainly would with Theresa May.
Exactly. Tell me the publication that described or describes the Labour Party or any senior Labour Party politician, anyone like Jeremy Corbyn, etc., 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 as far left in this legacy media. They might describe them as the left. They don't describe them as the far left. Is that an accurate observation?
I don't know. I don't read much corporate press.
Good one.
I'm wondering whether the corporate press is good because it gets left wingers on side, but they don't like them because corporations and corporate.
Okay, so let's go as far as saying, I don't think if you googled Guardian, Jeremy Corbyn, far left, you're going to get any hits.
But if you googled Daily
Or
Mail,
BBC, right?
would you? And I don't read the Mail, so I occasionally see the odd article, but I don't.
Yeah, I will. I have on occasion scanned through the Daily Mail well, obviously it's Mail Online homepage, which is like the entire longest website on Earth kind of thing. But it's like once every 3 or 4 months to see what it's saying. I do check the Telegraph headlines, although I'm not a subscriber. Again, I think that there's probably more. Maybe this is me trying a generalisation too far, and that the left wing press will use the term far right, and the right wing press will use the term far left. Maybe.
I think the press are more likely to use the term hard left than far left.
Ah, okay.
It tends to be hard left and far right.
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
I don't know why.
Hard left, far right, hard right.
You don't often hear hard right.
You don't. No. That sounded awkward. That hard right sounded like the command I was giving you as a co-driver, didn't it? Hairpin left, hard right. Yeah.
But I bet you could Google Jeremy Corbyn hard left, and you'd see it, and not just in publications like Breitbart,
okay,
but you'd probably see it.
That's it. So
the Telegraph and
the term hard in that is seen as arguably softer to describe it then, as opposed to far right. Far right has connotations, doesn't it?
Far sounds worse. Hard, it can just be strong.
Yes.
Robust. It's got quite a positive feel to it.
Yes, radical.
Yeah. Whereas far, it just tends to echoes of the extreme, and it's gone too far. It's beyond where you need to be.
Yeah.
Which is why far right sounds worse. It's like, that's on the far right.
Yeah, absolutely. Where are we going with this now? I've run out of righty lefty things to say. So this was born out of still talking about. Oh my God, we started back on what happened if you rigged an election, and we're our favourite topic of what was right and what was left.
But I'll just bring it back to the point where I think it's important to define what the left and the right are, because most people don't know. Most people or lots of people certainly tend to associate classical liberals with the right.
But classical liberal now, in the new lexicon, can be defined as far right. They're actually taking free market libertarian ideas and calling them far right. They are deliberately misdescribing these things.
But it's also so
they want to do it because they want to put freedom policies together with really, really negative connotations. That's deliberate, isn't it?
Yes, so the left is deliberately doing that, but the right are falling into the trap of saying,
just going along with it.
Yeah, of course I'm right wing, because I don't want to be a communist, and lots of people who are, on the libertarian end of things would still describe themselves as being right wing.
Yeah. Which again, you've got to.
Of course, a lot of them are. A lot of them are, like more on the right than the left. So there are lots of people who would, don't like the NHS. Okay, there are many people who don't like the NHS, but don't like, like the massively state-run education and want like a much smaller state, but still a bit of regulation. And they would call them
small status.
Yeah, and they would call themselves right wingers as opposed to
libertarians.
Yeah, libertarians or liberals,
or even liberals. Well, right, liberal as a term is gone. It's.
See, that's a shame, because I would love
Agreed.
to be able to call myself a liberal. I
Yeah.
would love it, and I think I fit the term liberal, bang on.
Agreed.
As do you.
Agreed.
But it just the connotations.
I like to do it. I like to do it to another
radical
people.
liberal. Can we?
Radical liberal. I mean, yeah, it should be. That should be not a difficult term to get your head around. Actually, should it? That would work. I quite like that. Let's describe ourselves now as radical liberal. This is like, just inventing your own term again. No, it'll get changed or whatever.
But there isn't really a term that I'd like. We've gone through this before. Voluntarist is probably the closest, because it hasn't yet been tainted.
Individualist was what I came up with before as well.
Yeah.
But I don't like labels. I think we've established. Wasn't it? Have you heard Douglas Murray on the Delling Pod? Yeah, from last week.
He didn't like badges.
And I was like, see, that's me.
He meant physical badges, didn't he? He meant brooches and.
But I think there was a tendency there. I think
Right.
there was a specific. I think that was because he doesn't like labels. That's what I'm interpreting from that anyway. It was funny. I don't like badges. The way you said it was like proper. Shut him down. But yeah, this is about not liking labels on not anything, on me.
Should we end it there?
Yeah, unless you have anything else to chat about.
No, that was all good.
Thank you for listening to Sounding Board, for watching Sounding Board. You can do the rest.
So if you're not already watching, we're on YouTube, and we're on iTunes, and we're on Google Podcasts and Stitcher,
And on Spotify.
and also on ThinkSpot.
What's that?
It's I think it was it Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin, I think, were involved with the starting. It's like a new social media platform.
Okay.
So we're on there now. And,
Excellent.
do tune in. Thank you.